Was it pretty easy for you once you started organized, or did it take a little bit of a transition?
I had never been coached, right?
Hmm.
So, for me, it was in the driveway or even by myself. Like, again, this is hood, but I'm from Flint. So, when my brothers graduated from high school, they moved away. They actually moved to Texas.
Mm,
And then it was just me and my mom. So we moved out of the city and we moved into like the county, but we lived in a two-bedroom apartment and we had
yeah.
no I had no basketball hoop. So I had a ball. So I would go in the parking lot and I would make up my own games. So I would, if there was a crack like in the parking lot in the
Hmm.
concrete, that was the hoop. And if I shot and it landed on the crack, that was a bucket. If it missed the crack, if it was too far, that was a brick. If it was short of the crack, that was an air ball. So I'm out there by myself for hours in the parking lot playing these make-believe games. And back this is like back in the day, James. So the best women's basketball programs were Louisiana Tech,
Hmm.
USC,
Hmm.
Virginia,
Hmm.
and your school.
You know,
Texas.
uh-huh.
So those were the only times that a women's basketball game was shown on national TV was Final Four weekend, and they played back to back. So Saturday were the semifinals, Sunday was the finals. So
Hmm.
the only teams that I got to watch, the only players I got to watch were those schools. So I thought I was Andrea Lloyd. I was Andrea Lloyd out there.
Yep.
I was Cheryl Miller out there, and I would play these games by myself. So my first real basketball game with a real coach, and I did. I struggled with being coached for a couple years
Hmm.
because I just thought I knew everything because of my parking lot games. So it was an adjustment for me. Oh my God, Mia.
That
Yeah,
is
and when you
amazing.
take a pic, I like the way you pose a special way. Can deal with petty shit, I never let drama get in the way. And you can deal with none of your problems, cause you rather run away. It hurts the most when your family tend to be your biggest pain.
Welcome back to Fast Break Focus. This is season three. We are back. We're better than ever. We're pushing more stories out there. We're continuing to push the game. Today we have somebody who has, I say, excel on all three levels. The fact that you get to, we talked a little bit off camera. The fact that you make it to, to college is an impressive feat itself. But she's worn every hat from coach to player to director of basketball operations, assistant coach, head coach. Now she is broadcasting for not only the Chicago Sky, but also for the Big Ten Network. She has done everything hailing from Flint, Michigan. Shimmy Miller, welcome to Fast Break Focus.
Thank you, James. I appreciate it. Thanks for
How's
having me.
how's everything going for you?
Everything is great. I had a game last night. It was a good game. It was Nebraska, Minnesota,
Oh
a very
yeah.
important game
Yes.
for NCAA tournament and
Yes.
all that good stuff. And then I flew home this morning, spent the day with my 14-month-old daughter.
Okay.
She's in bed now, and now I'm getting to spend the evening with you.
I know that's right. Well, first, congratulations on a 14-year-old daughter. I mean, 14-month daughter. I know that it is. I have a 2-year-old, and it's not easy.
Woo! Woo! They never stop.
It is.
She's been walking. She's been walking since she was 9 months old,
Oh
and
wow.
I didn't know that that was abnormal, right? I
Right.
mean, it's just what she was doing, and
Right.
we go to gym class 3 times a week, and she's at
Hmm.
gym class, and she's walking around, and all the other parents are like, "How old is she?" And I was like, 10 months. And they
Right.
were like, "What? My kid is 11 months old and still like scooting."
Right.
So we didn't know that that was abnormal, and she has been keeping us busy.
I know that's right. You've been when they start walking, I call that chase territory. Now you're in the chase territory. You're
Yeah,
just
yeah,
chasing at
yeah.
this point.
I am more worn out with this 14-month-old than I was 24 years of coaching 22-year-olds. For sure. No contest.
I know that's right. I know that's right. Influences in basketball growing up in Flint, and when did you start to pick up the game of basketball?
Um, that's uh that's an easy question for me, James, because this is my brother, my big brother, Robert. He passed away a few years ago. But he was 11 years older than me. and he was like my guy.
Hmm.
He was like the dad that I didn't have and the big brother that I needed. And I
Right.
spent a lot of time with him. Our mom was a single mom with three kids, and she worked. And so Robert took care of me. He bought me my first basketball hoop. It was one of those Nerf hoops. Well, first James, he this is so hood, but I'm from Flint. And he would take a wire coat hanger and stretch it out and hang it, like hook the hanger part, hook it
Uh-huh.
on the back of the door, and then take a pair of socks, roll them up. And that was my ball, that was my hoop. And we would shoot hoops, on the back of the door. And then when I just loved it, and I would always
Hmm.
be like, I want to shoot hoops, let's shoot hoops. Then for my birthday one year, I think I was 6 or 7, he got me a real like Nerf hoop, and it had the adjustable stanchion. And so he would play with me. He'd be on his knees.
Hmm.
And every time I try to shoot, he'd block my shot. And then, and then
Typical big brother.
I started getting crafty. Like I'm 7 years old doing like up and under, like step through moves so I don't get my shot blocked. And then I advanced, we had a hoop in our driveway, and
Hmm.
so it was my big brother, and it just grew from there. My love for the game grew from there. I didn't play my first organized game of basketball though till I was in the seventh grade.
Gotcha.
But I always had a ball in my hand.
Was it pretty easy for you once you started organized, or did it take a little bit of a transition?
I had never been coached, right?
Hmm.
So, for me, it was in the driveway or even by myself. Like, again, this is hood, but I'm from Flint. So, when my brothers graduated from high school, they moved away. They actually moved to Texas.
Mm.
And then it was just me and my mom. So, we moved out of the city and we moved into like the county, but we lived in a two-bedroom apartment, and
Right.
I had no basketball hoop. So I had a ball. So I would go in the parking lot and I would make up my own games. So I would, if there was a crack like in the parking lot in the
Hmm.
concrete, that was the hoop. And if I shot and it landed on the crack, that was a bucket. If it missed the crack, if it was too far, that was a brick. If it was short of the crack, that was an air ball. So I'm out there by myself for hours in the parking lot playing these make-believe games. And that this is like back in the day, James. So the best women's basketball programs were Louisiana Tech,
Hmm.
USC,
Hmm.
Virginia,
Hmm.
and your school.
You know.
Texas.
Uh-huh.
So those were the only times that a women's basketball game was shown on national TV was Final Four weekend, and they played back to back. So Saturday were the semifinals, Sunday was the finals. So
Hmm.
the only teams that I got to watch, the only players I got to watch were those schools. So I thought I was Andrea Lloyd. I was Andrea Lloyd out there.
Yep.
I was Cheryl Miller out there, and I would play these games by myself. So my first real basketball game with a real coach, and I struggled with being coached for a couple years
Hmm.
because I just thought I knew everything because of my parking lot games. So it was an adjustment for me.
I got you. That is hilarious. And that speaks to your dedication and just the imagination of a kid. Kids don't have that imagination nowadays. I can't imagine a kid going outside right now and just the crack is the hoop. That's it.
It's the
That's all we
hoop.
got.
It's the hoop. That's all I had. I had a ball. That's what I had. A ball in the parking lot. So.
I know that's right. So, just to move forward a little bit, I saw or heard that you got recruited really late in the
Hmm.
game. You
Hmm.
got your first offer wasn't until I think 10th grade.
Hmm. Yep.
And
Ball State. Ball
yeah,
State.
so can you take me through what was the recruiting process like for you then?
So again, didn't really know that I could go to college. Like my mom didn't even come to any of my games. She didn't
Mhm.
start coming to my basketball games till I was like in 10th or 11th grade
Gotcha.
because I had no one in my family had gone to college, James. Like this was just really kind of something that I was kind of doing by myself. And I knew what I didn't want. I knew I didn't want to live in Flint, Michigan. I knew I didn't want to work for General Motors on an assembly line like everyone else in my family. I knew that.
Yeah.
And so, we didn't have money, we didn't have money like that. So there was no college fund. Like
Hmm.
graduating from high school was the expectation. And so I wanted to be like Cheryl Miller, Andrea Lloyd, the Burge twins,
Hmm.
Dawn, all that, Teresa Weatherspoon. And so basketball was going to be my ticket. So it was really late in the game, and I had gone to one camp, and Ball State recruiter saw me and sent me a letter. And that really, that one letter from Ball State kind of changed everything. Then my
Mhm.
mom was all of a sudden like, "Oh,
Oh, she got a chance.
girl, yeah."
She got
She
a
was like,
chance.
"Oh, okay." So then there was an investment. So then the summer going into my junior year, it was like I went to like all these all-star camps that my mom was sending me to. I got picked up by a Detroit team for
Hmm.
AAUs. I went to AAU Nationals, all that. And then the recruiting process really started. But yeah, I didn't get my first letter until 10th grade.
So what made Michigan the team to go to? It's just
I really
just because
wanted
it was Michigan?
I really wanted to go to Michigan State, and they stopped
Oh,
recruiting me. I
really?
mean, we're being honest, right?
Right.
We're
We're being
we're
honest.
being
We're being
honest.
honest.
So Michigan State was recruiting me heavily, and
Hmm.
I thought that's where I was going, was to Michigan State. Michigan really wasn't interested in me. And being from Flint, Michigan, it was Michigan State. Like I think
Hmm.
Flintstones identify with Michigan State. It's more kind of
Flintstone.
like blue collar, right? It's like it's got blue collar, it's like the grit. Whereas Michigan has more of like that kind of that elitist,
Hmm.
that
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
area, maybe like Southfield, Royal Oak, the suburbs. But like
Yeah,
I'm from Flint, it's Michigan State, and then they Michigan State just really just stopped recruiting me. And what I found out later is they had gotten a commitment from someone in my position. And
gotcha.
then Michigan jumped in. And then once I visited Michigan, I was like, this is where I want to go. Like this place is incredible. And I wouldn't change it for the world. I love being a Wolverine.
I know that's right. And so how far away were you from home?
45 minutes, but my mom did not want me to go to school in Michigan. She didn't want me to go to Michigan. And so when it was time for me to go to my official visit, she said,
Hmm.
I'm not taking you. I'm not driving you. So if they want you
Really?
so bad, if they want you, they can come and pick you up. So an assistant coach drove, fun fact, Les Miles, right? Les
Yes.
Miles, former coach at
Yes.
LSU, Kansas. His wife, it's actually his wife was my assistant, Kathy. And
Right.
so Kathy came, she drove from Ann Arbor, she picked me up. We stopped at Burger King. I was hungry. We got a Whopper. And then what I found out is they were working on my mom behind the scenes. There was an older female assistant on the staff at the time,
Gotcha.
Coach Debbie, and she was working on my mom. So
Gotcha.
unbeknownst to me, they had convinced my mom to come to Ann Arbor, and they separated us. I had no idea my mom was in Ann Arbor, and they wined and dined my mom, and
Oh
they
yeah.
kind of like
Yeah.
they won her over. So
Yeah.
my final three schools were Minnesota, Illinois, and Michigan, and I chose Michigan.
I know that's right. I know that's right. Why didn't your mom want you to go stay in Michigan?
I was young, James. I started school early because we couldn't afford daycare.
Hmm.
So I actually started school when I was 4 years old. So I graduated from high school. I started college when I was 17.
Oh my goodness.
And I was young and I was very immature.
Hmm. I
And
get
and
it.
I was the youngest. Remember, I had two older brothers. My brothers are 11 years and 10 years older than me. So she wanted me to go away because she thought I needed that to kind of grow up and mature.
Hmm.
Um, and so she just was kind of like, well, if you're not going to go to Michigan State, then you might as well leave the state, go
Right.
away. And so as it turns out, my freshman year, I got hurt. I redshirted. I dislocated my kneecap, first injury of my life. I was 17 years old. And my mom was able to come. She was able to be there for me.
Hmm.
And if I had gone to Minnesota or Illinois or Arizona, Old Dominion, some of the other schools that were recruiting me, that she wouldn't have been able to afford to be there for me to fly out to those schools. So in hindsight, it was a blessing that I was only 45 minutes away.
Right.
So it worked out perfectly.
Yeah, yeah, it definitely did. So you end up redshirting your freshman year, like you say, and it's you end up playing 3 years. You
Right.
downplay your career a lot, but but your points, rebounds, and assists they went up every year. If I could look at the
Yeah.
stats, you averaged three your redshirt freshman year, then you moved up to 7.9, then 11.3. So that right there
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
itself. But also, what I wanted to say was your junior year, you was a captain, so
Yeah.
they don't just hand those out to anybody. So,
no, no,
and
no.
the Bob Uffer, you can correct me on that. Quarterback,
Bob
Bob
Ufer.
Uffer, Quarterback
Yep.
Club Award winner for leadership and dedication.
Yeah, yeah.
So, you like to you off camera you downplayed it, but I don't know too many people that can get awards like that. It didn't have some type of success, put it that way.
Yeah, it's the captainship, that was probably the captaincy, that was probably the biggest honor, to be honest with you. And
Hmm.
the Bob Ufer Senior Leader Award, because that award went across all Michigan student athletes, not just basketball, but football, cross country swimming, you name it, hockey. But I think the being named a captain was a big deal to me. I can't believe I forgot this. Tennessee was the other school that I always saw on
Oh,
television, right? They were always in the Final
yeah,
Four, Tennessee.
yeah.
And my head coach actually played at Tennessee. She
Hmm.
played for Pat Summitt. And
Okay.
she thought she was Pat Summitt. Like she was hard. Like
Yeah,
she was hard.
yeah.
And I learned a lot from her, but she was hard on us, particularly me. And when I was named captain, I'll never forget this. She said to me, she pulled me aside and she said, "You've earned this. Your teammates have voted you and your assistant coaches agree. But just like we gave it to you, I can take it away." And so I was the most like I was like Tom Brady captain. I was like
Yeah,
focused. I was
yeah.
all about ball during the season. But that was probably that meant the most to me, is being a Michigan captain.
I know that's what made you not decide to do your last year eligibility?
I had like bad knees, and this was, you
Hmm.
got to remember, this was like in the 1994,
Hmm.
and we didn't have the resources that were available to athletes now. We didn't have training table. We had to share a training room with like six other sports. We didn't have
Hmm.
all the equipment that's available now.
Hmm.
And so I just had like a knee that just was, and then I had a coach who, like I said, was really hard. Like for preseason conditioning, we had to run 6 weeks of conditioning every Monday. We had to run a time 2 mile on the street. Every Tuesday we were running 400s every Wednesday. So it was just like it was crazy. And
Yeah.
she was one of those old school coaches that like it, and I'm not like blaming her, dragging her. This
Hmm.
is how they all were back in the
Right.
90s,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
But she
Absolutely.
was like, if you don't pass all your conditioning tests, you can't practice. So I had teammates that it was February and they still trying to pass conditioning tests. Meanwhile, we're like, we need you on the court, but like they couldn't pass their conditioning tests. And so I had a bad knee, and I was just like, I thought I was grown, and I was just like, I'm ready to start my life. And
Hmm.
so I made the decision. And I think in hindsight, James, she didn't give me enough time to really process it.
Right.
Like she told me, she made me make a decision before the season even ended.
Right.
She was like, "Are you coming back?" And I was like, "I don't know. And she was like, "I need to know because of recruiting. Like, you need to tell
Yeah.
me like now." And in hindsight, if she would have given me a couple weeks after the season to not make an emotional decision,
Yeah.
I probably would have chosen to come back. And I don't regret anything in my life. Nothing. I've made a lot of mistakes. I've done a lot of dumb things. Thank God we didn't have social media when I was in college or my early 20s. Me and you would not be sitting here right now. But there's only one thing in life that I regret, and that's not taking my fifth year,
Hmm.
because you never know. You talked about how my numbers went up every year. Like I never know what kind of year I would have had that last year. And I think that's the
Hmm.
worst feeling in the world, is the unknown, right?
Right.
Is regret. Like I know I probably would have been limping. I know that it would have been hard. I know that. But I had already gone through it. But I never know what kind of season we could have had, or what kind of year personally I could have had I taken that fifth year.
I know. So yeah, yeah. I could see it. Yeah. That regret of, what could have been, and what
It's
the league wasn't, the WNBA wasn't out back then. What was the top league back then?
it was like some, I played in them too. It was like
Hmm.
some garbage. Like we sleeping four to a hotel room, traveling around in minivans
Mm,
to, all over. I don't even know the names of it, but I they were basically like glorified pro-ams for women.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
and one of my teammates was Tanya Edwards, who was an All-American at Tennessee, right? And I
Hmm.
remember sharing a room with Tanya Edwards on one of these like pro-am teams. The WNBA came around a few years after I
Yeah.
graduated, and I
Yeah.
did I did get a tryout with the Detroit Shock. I got cut, but at least I gave it a shot.
Right.
And and then Tanya Edwards got picked up. She went on to play a few years in the league. So,
Hmm.
but like it was a little bit too the league came a little bit too late for players
Yeah.
like me.
Yeah. Especially at that time, like it is today. You got to be ready right now.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
we don't have time for projects. You can get
No,
ready.
you're right. You're right.
So after that, you go on to play a little bit in Portugal, and then you
hmm
get an opportunity to go to Washington as a director of basketball operations and assistant coach.
hmm
What do you remember from those days, and specifically being a director of basketball operations?
So they made up that position for me. That was
Hmm.
back. So my first coaching job was actually at a community college. It was at Bellevue Community College right
Hmm.
outside Seattle. I knew no one out there. I got offered the job through email and packed up my car, drove across the country. I was renting a room with I had like four roommates in Seattle, and it was so expensive to live in Seattle. And I
Hmm.
made like $460 a month coaching. So I had to work at a coffee shop.
Mm.
So I worked at a coffee shop 6 days a week. I opened up the coffee shop. So I was there every morning at 5:30 a.m., opened it up at 6. I would work in the coffee shop until like 1:30 or 2, change clothes in the bathroom, and then drive across the bridge to Bellevue Community College, where then I would coach. And
Jeez.
as an assistant coach at community college, I was doing everything, driving the vans, doing the laundry, everything. And then I would get home at night, go to bed. I was broke. I was skinny, broke. But it was the best year of my life.
I know that's right.
And that's when you know you really have a
Hmm.
passion for something is
Yeah,
when you aren't making any money and it's a struggle, but you go to bed happy every night. Like this is where I'm supposed to be.
absolutely.
And I would come to I would go to University of Washington practices if I had a day off or if we had like a bye week or we didn't have practice or something like that. I would go to University of Washington practice and watch practice. I got to meet the coaching staff. And then in the summertime, I worked their camps.
Hmm.
And I was like, they were like fourth graders at camp, and I was writing like 2-page evaluation notes. And so the head coach, her name was June Doherty, and she actually unfortunately she passed away
Hmm.
a few years ago. She had a heart attack. Coach Doherty was the longtime coach at Washington, and she came up to me and she said, "Hey, I don't even know if some of these kids can read. Like, you really don't have to spend so much time on these evaluations."
Right.
But that stood out to her, and when she had an opening, James, she called me.
I know that's right.
And so I was an assistant coach of my first paycheck. I think I made $28,000 a year. I was a third assistant coach, so I didn't get to go out on the road recruiting. That rules have all changed. Now
Hmm.
coaching staffs have like 5, 6 assistants.
Yeah.
And then in order to give me more money, she had to justify why she was giving me a raise the next year. So that's when the Dobo thing was just kicking in. This was like 1999, 2000.
Yep.
And so she's like, "We're going to make you a Dobo." And I said, "Well, what does that mean?" She said, "Nothing. It means you do all the same stuff you've been doing. We just going to add Dobo to your business card so that I can pay you, so I can pay you $10,000 more." So I did practice players, the
Yep.
film exchange, academics. I would go and do class checks on my rollerblades. I would roll up to campus on my rollerblades doing class checks. And so I was with her for like 3 years. And again, wasn't making a lot of money, but it was like the best time of my life.
I know that's right. You made practice evaluations for second graders. That is
I
hilarious.
did. I did. I was dead serious too.
Yeah, yeah. You have a very, very unique work ethic. I'll tell you that much. Very unique work ethic. So after that, you end up going to Arizona. The school that recruited you.
Mhm.
How was that time? And you was only there for what, 3 seasons? So a very short stint.
It was hard because the players were different. Like it was a different type of player there, and the head coach ran things completely different. So June was really about like culture and family, and and she recruited a certain type of player, and we played a certain type of style. So we played like a matchup zone, and we played motion offense, and all of our players could shoot. So I had 6'4" post players that could shoot the three. And at Arizona, Coach Bombasini, she recruited dogs. Like we ran, we pressed, we got after it. And she valued players who were more like her,
Hmm.
like stubborn, tenacious, fearless. And so that adjustment for me was, I was young, like I was still young assistant. And so it was like a difficult transition. And but I'm really grateful because I coached a post player who to this day remains the most talented post player I've ever coached. Her name was Shantanese Polk.
Hmm.
She died. Why do I feel like everyone who's been like significant in my life, like I've started, this is the third time I've said, unfortunately, she passed away. Unfortunately, my brother passed away. Unfortunately, my coach passed away. But her name was Shantanese Polk, and she died of a blood clot before her senior year. But she was an
Hmm.
All-American. She was an All-American. And she was, you have to look her up when we get
Yeah.
off this pod, James. She was like incredible. 6'5", played the top of our zone. Um, I mean, she was the best player I've ever coached, and she was the most challenging player I've
Hmm.
ever coached. And I don't think you grow when you coach players who are like, okay, coach, whatever you say, I'll do
Yeah.
whatever you say. You coach players who challenge you. You coach
Yeah.
player, you I'm sorry, you grow from players who challenge you. You grow from players who say, why? Why? Why I got to
Yeah.
do that? Why I got to do
Yeah.
it that way? And she challenged me, and she made me better, and she prepared me for everything else that was to come. But I was only there for 2 years because then I
Okay.
got a because then I got a head coaching job.
Yep.
But it was a challenging 2 years, and I'm grateful for it.
I know that's right. What was her name, by the way? I'm gonna put it into my phone right now.
Shantanice Polk,
Um,
Shawtinice Polk, Polk. She was
yep.
incredible.
Got it right here. I'm gonna put a bookmark
So
on
it
it.
was a little
All
unique in
right.
the sense that I
And
was going into
right
the
there.
last year of
Got
my
it. I
contract,
would
and
definitely,
I
and
had
I'll
a
hit you up
meeting
too
with my
later about it.
athletic
I'll
director,
hit you up
and
Okay.
later
he
about it.
Okay.
told me
Do
before
that.
the
Do
season
that.
started
Gotcha. But
that
then
it
you
doesn't
spoke
matter
a
what
little bit
kind of
about
year
it.
you
Your
have.
first head
I'm not
coaching
going to
job
renew
at
your
St. Louis
contract. Like you're
University.
not. He
How
didn't
was
hire
that?
me. He was
And
not
what
the
was
guy
that
who
like getting
hired
your
me.
first,
My
getting that
my
call that,
AD
hey, we
left
want you to be a
in
head
right
coach here?
after I signed my contract extension. She
Well,
left.
it was
Mm.
great. I didn't know anything
And
about St.
so we
Louis
got a new AD.
University. I didn't know it was a
And
Jesuit
he
school. I didn't know
was
it was
like,
private. I didn't
we
I didn't know
tried this
anything. And
thing. It's
so
not
to
working. You're
get,
not
I
the
was
one for
32
me. I didn't
years
hire
old.
you. You're not my
So to
coach.
get
So it
a
doesn't
call like
matter
that,
what kind of
I
year
had
you
only
have
been
when
a,
your
I had only
contract
been coaching for six
expires at
years.
the
And
end of the,
so
the
that
season.
someone wants
You're
you,
out.
that you've been
And
recommended, someone wants you.
and then I left.
It
Like I
was
left
like,
his
it
office
was
knock.
like,
He
Yeah.
was like, "Okay, that's
and
it. Do you have any other
I
questions?" And
there
I
was
was
no
like,
way I was going to be
"No."
successful there,
Not
but
really.
I was
No.
just a
So
combination of
I walk
cocky
out of
and
his office,
stupid.
and you could
Yeah.
do
And
like
that's a
one or
deadly
two things with that.
combination
You could
because I
go,
was
okay,
just
I'm going
cocky
right to
enough and stupid
Kinko's, and
enough
I'm
to
going to start
think
updating my
that I
resume,
could
and I'm going to
be
start
with
making phone
limited
calls because
experience
I
and
had
Yeah.
think
in a
about
place
me
where that
and what's
had
next for
no
me.
history of success
For
Right.
women's
or
basketball.
you can go, okay,
None.
you know what?
That I
Winning
thought
and
I was
losing,
going to
it
be the one
doesn't
to turn it
matter.
around.
So this is great.
And I
I'm
was there
playing
for
with house
7 years. So
money.
my first couple
So
years,
now I get to
our
coach in
trajectory was
freedom.
good.
And
Yeah.
I get
Good enough
to,
that they gave me a
because
contract
sometimes as
extension.
coaches, you start making
And then it went all
decisions
downhill.
based
But I
on
learned a
keeping
lot of
your
valuable
job.
lessons. I learned
So
how
you
important
know
resources
somebody
are. I
done
learned
messed
how
up,
important
right? And they
decision
don't
making
deserve to
versus
play because they
suggestion
done
making
skipped
is.
class
You
or
make
they,
suggestions as an
rogue or they
assistant and
breaking
decisions
rules,
as a
but they are
head.
our
I
best
learned the
player.
value
And I'm
of
trying to get wins because
recruiting
I
to
got to save
culture
my
and
job.
your
So I'm going
values,
to play them
how important that
anyway.
is.
Yeah.
A lot of
When
great
you know
lessons
it
in
doesn't
that
matter
7
if
year
you win or
experience, but it
lose,
was also
then
the
you
first
don't
time
have
in
to
my
coach
life that
like
I
that. You
failed.
don't have
Yep.
to
It
be.
was
Right.
So I was
it
able to
was the
take
first time in my
handcuffs
life
off,
that I didn't reach
and I
goal,
was able to
and
coach
that
in
was
freedom. for this last year.
That
And
was
what I
transformative
decided,
as
it
well.
was no longer that last year. It
So,
wasn't going to be about
what did
winning
that experience
games. It was going
teach
to be
you
about
about going
winning
forward? Because you
days.
next went to Nebraska, but what
So
did
I
just about,
adopted this whole
holy crap,
win
I
the
failed.
day mentality and mindset. And a lot of people think, well, win the day, that's so positive. That must come from a place of positivity. No, it didn't. It came from one of the darkest days of my life, a day where this guy said, and in 9 months from now, I am going to fire you. And so I was just like, okay, win the day because I can't control what he does, but I can control what I do. I can control my attitude, my energy, and my effort. That's it. Like that's it. And so if I can wake up every morning and do those three things, then I've won the day. And if I go home at night and I assess and I go, you know what? I had great attitude, but man, I just wasn't feeling today and I was just kind of dogging it in practice. I kind of went through the motions in practice. Well, you lost that day, Shim. Okay, all right, you're not gonna win every day. So now let's correct it so that you don't lose 2 days in a row. So I felt like I did my best coaching job that year
Hmm.
actually. And I had no regrets. And I remember our very last game. I'll never forget this, James. I never talked about it with the kids. I never talked about it with the kids. I had seniors on the team. That was going to be their last ever college basketball experience. So it wasn't about me. It was about making sure they had the best senior year they could possibly have. I was knew that I was going to go on and coach somewhere else, but
Right,
I had kids in that team in that locker room that was it for them. So I had to be the best for them. So I was not going to discuss my situation with them. But I
right.
think some of them kind of knew it. So I go in the locker room after our last game, and they're crying. And we lost in the second round of the quarterfinals of the A-10 tournament. And I look at him and I said, "Hey, eyes up, look at me." And I said, "What do I always tell you guys? To whom much is given," and they repeated it, "much is required in return." And I said, so I've been given this opportunity to turn this program around, and I fell short. So therefore, there's going to be a coaching change. And they went, "Oh God," So a couple of them
Yeah.
were probably happy. A couple of them were probably like, "Good, you didn't play me, no way." But I felt like most of them were upset. And I said, "Hey, this is how life works, right?"
Mhm.
And I said, "So for some of you, this is it for you." And blah blah blah. And I said, "Some of you will be coming back, and then you'll have an opportunity to finish what you started here, to do what you came here to do." And I said, and this is what I said, James, change is an opportunity. Change is an opportunity for something better to occur. I have an opportunity to go on and be better someplace else. You guys have an opportunity to get a new coach in here to make things better than how I left it because I feel like I left it better than how the last coach left it. So that's how you have to look at like there's no such when you look at it like that there's no such thing as failures, right? It's failure is just an opportunity. It's just an opportunity for something better to occur. And so that's where win the day came from. That's where that growth mindset came from. And then I went into Nebraska and what I learned about myself is I am a damn good assistant coach. Not so much of a head coach. I am not a good head coach, but I am a damn good assistant coach. And we won a Big Ten championship in year two at Nebraska. And I
Uh-huh.
got to cut down the nets, and I got to do something that I've wanted to do since I was a redshirt freshman at Michigan, and that is be a Big Ten champion. And I finally got to do that. And had I not gotten fired from St. Louis, then that doesn't happen.
Well, I tell you, you full of quotes. I tell you, every time. You full of good ones. I tell you that much. You're definitely. I can see why you do a lot of speeches. I can see it. I can see it. But just so, like you say, I'm a better head coach. I mean, assistant coach than I am head coach. You went on a string of assistant coach runs after that. Nebraska, Florida, Texas Tech, Clemson, and Minnesota. What are those? What was that about that experience? And you bounced all around. I mean, you was in the Big Ten, the SEC, then you went to the Big 12, the ACC, and then you went back to the Big Ten. What about, just the difference in the style of play and what are those experiences just different spots? What do they teach you?
It's kind of unique because I've gotten to recruit like all over the country. That's rare. Like usually, like if you're at one school, you recruit a certain region, right?
Mhm.
Well, in Florida, I got to recruit like Georgia, and I got to recruit, in the South, and Florida just has such an international like name and brand. You really could recruit like anywhere. Clemson, I got to recruit, again like South and Georgia and Mississippi and then Texas, like Texas basketball. Oh my God, you had Audrey Warren on your
Yes.
podcast. She was one of like we recruited her. We had her on campus in Lubbock. She was one of my favorites. She couldn't shoot, right? She couldn't
Yep.
shoot.
Right.
And so I remember having discussions with the coaching staff about her. She came to camp and they were like, "Well, she can't shoot. She's not like great offensive player." And I'm like, "But she's a dog.
Dog.
Like she is a dog, and she's a winner, and she has grit, and she's tough." And you need an Audrey Warren if you're trying to win. Everybody can't shoot, right?
Yeah.
Everybody can't, you only have one basketball, right? But you
Yep.
need somebody who's going to impact a game without scoring a point. And that was Audrey Warren. And then she got better offensively as I continue to follow her career, at Texas. But so that was kind of a unique experience for me. And then I think the coaches, I mean, my gosh, like to do scouting reports and you're coaching against um Vic Schaefer when he was at Mississippi
Yep.
State, Jeff Waltz when he, at Louisville.
Yeah.
Like the level Muffet McGraw got to do a Notre Dame scout, Muffet McGraw, like the level of coaches in the leagues that I got to coach in, like Brenda Freeze, Maryland, like preparing a scout against Brenda Freeze, preparing a scout against like Caitlin Clark or like so just it was just like an incredible if you love basketball, then how could you not like
Love that journey. Yeah.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Because that's a lot of high level basketball. But before we do that, wait a minute, wait a minute. Before we do that, you got your master's at Clemson. I wanted to
I
touch
did.
base before we move forward to current times. What was your decision to go back and get your master's?
So there's two things that happened. One, I got in a really bad car accident at Clemson. I was coming home from work. It was late at night, speeding, distracted. I was looking down. I was using GPS. Still wasn't completely like familiar with where I like was going, like back roads and stuff like that. And you know how sometimes GPS takes you on the fastest route. So it took me on a route I wasn't used to going. And so the GPS was talking to me and I had it in my cup holder. So I looked down, to see the GPS and missed a curve. It was rainy. I was speeding and I missed the curve. And so I skidded off the road and I hit a tree. And it was I broke my arm, I broke my leg, 23 stitches in my leg. So it was a horrible accident. Police were there and the police guy, he was just like, "You're lucky, you're lucky to be alive." And the car, airbags, all that stuff. And so that happened. And then like 6 months later, COVID happened, right?
Yeah.
So two major events happened in my life like within a year, and it got me to thinking, like, what if I wouldn't have survived the car accident? What if like COVID, I get sick in COVID or whatever, like what are some things, Shimmy, that you haven't done yet that you would have regretted? Like if your life would have ended and you're in heaven and God was like, "All right, we know you regret not coming back for your fifth year, but is there anything else that any other unfinished business that you had down there that you could like, if I send you back, could you redo?" And so I started thinking about it. So I wrote a list. There's some things that I hadn't accomplished yet that I still feel like I had a lot to live for. And getting my master's was one of them. When I went to University of Michigan, I was a student athlete. And so I took the classes that they told me to take, and I did fine in college, but I was there to play ball.
Yeah.
And I wanted to go back and I wanted to get a master's and I wanted to do it for me. And I also knew that I wasn't going to be coaching when I was 60 years old. And so like, well, what are you going to do? And so I thought that I would go into athletic administration. So I loved Clemson. I loved the university. And I was like, I could see myself getting a Clemson degree. And so during COVID, we had a lot of free time and I applied for graduate school. and I was like, I got accepted. And I did it on my own, and I was so proud of myself. And I got my master's degree. And I would get up every morning at 5 a.m. and that's when I would do my schoolwork. So I would do my schoolwork from like 5 to 8, and then I would go to the office. And then if I had, I made it work I went year round for 2 straight years, and I got my master's. And we threw a big party. I had like 15 of my friends. We rented an Airbnb and we just threw a big old party on
Nice, man.
graduation weekend because I did it. Like I
Yeah.
did it. I did it.
I know that's right. I know that's right. So after all that, you get your master's, you go to Minnesota. Then you get an opportunity to broadcast for the Chicago Sky. How
Mhm.
did that opportunity come about?
I feel like I have a story for everything. So it was halfway through my master's program that I realized I did not want to go into athletic administration. Like I was just like, I don't want to do this. But I finished the program. But I was like, I'm not going to be an athletic administrator. So when I decided to stop coaching, I was kind of like, okay, well, what do I want to do? So my wife is a broadcaster, but she's a play-by-play. And so she works for the Milwaukee Bucks. She's a play-by-play. She calls football, men's and women's basketball, college. She's actually doing Athletes Unlimited this weekend. She's in Nashville right now, calling games right now. I think she actually has a game that's getting ready to start here in about 30 minutes. But I would sit on the couch with her and we'd just be watching sports, and then I would say something, and then like 30 seconds later the analyst would say it,
Right.
and I would say, I told you. And then so then one time she said, well, since you know so much, why don't you do it? So I didn't say anything, but it planted like a seed in my head. And I was like, and this was like 3 years before I even stopped coaching. And I was like, I wonder if I could do that one day. So then when I was faced, was like, okay, what next? I applied. There was an internship through the Big Ten Network for
Uh-huh.
former student athletes who are interested in careers in broadcasting. So I applied for it, and I was so proud of myself. And so I told her, I said, guess what? I applied for the big experience, which is this internship program. And she went, oh no, honey, I don't think that's for you. And I said, why? And she said it's for student athletes like who just graduated. And
I'm
I
not gonna
said,
lie, that's the
well,
first thing I thought. I'm not gonna lie, that's the first thing I thought about. That's why that's so funny too, because that's the first thing. I didn't want to say it, but that's the first thing I thought. I was like, wait a minute now.
I
It's
said,
for
well,
student
it didn't.
athletes.
I was like, it didn't have an age requirement. It didn't say when you were a student athlete. I said, so I applied for it. And she went like this. She was like, looked at me like she was so embarrassed for me. And then I felt stupid. And then all I could picture is like somebody at the Big Ten office, like reading my application, going, this bitch graduated in 1994. What? We didn't even have the Big Ten Network in 1994. If she don't take her old butt somewhere and get a real job. So lo and behold, I didn't think anything more about it. And so I would go to, like I was going to Chicago Sky games. I'd been going to Chicago Sky games. And so I met the president of Chicago Sky, and he was just like, hey, well, if you're not coaching anymore, you ever have an interest in broadcasting? So they actually like let me sit in. So I would just sit in
Mhm.
and with that headset, and I was Stephen Bardo was the analyst for the Chicago Sky at the time, and I would listen to Bardo, and I was like, and then in my mind I'd be calling games in my mind. Well, this goes on for a couple months, and guess what? Your girl got a call from Big Ten Network and said we want to interview you for the big experience. So I interviewed and I got in. And there was 16 interns in the program. I was the oldest one, and it wasn't even close. James, have you seen the movie Billy Madison?
No, I'm not. No, I'm not.
Okay, well, Adam Sandler goes back to school, and he's like, no, like he goes back to school as like an adult, and he's sitting
Yeah.
there, and his desk is like tiny,
I know
and he
exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, I understand.
that was me in this internship program. I was like the Billy Madison of the Big Ten Network. I was in there with like Luca Garza was one of the other interns. Like Luca had just graduated from Iowa,
He didn't.
like But hey, it was like it goes back to like me being the camp counselor writing those two-page like
Yeah.
evals for the second graders. Like I took it very seriously. And at the end of the internship, they of the 16 of us, I think they ended up hiring like six of us, and I was one of the ones that got hired. And so it's kind of like what I tell players, you grow your minutes, right? Like so I didn't get a lot initially. Like they were like, well, we'll put you in studio or we might give you one or two games. But then you grow your minutes. And so those like four studio appearances led to like full-time studio, and those couple games led to like a full game schedule. Like yesterday, I think I called like my 16th game of this season. So you just grow your minutes, right? You make the most of your opportunities.
He ain't lying. And when I said unique work ethic, well, I wasn't lying. Well, I tell you, your work ethic is different, man. I tell you. So, so just just real quick, just what did you notice the difference between announcing these games and coaching the games? Has it taught you anything different about the game?
Yeah. So when you're coaching, you always kind of look at it with more of a negative slant. Like if somebody scores a bucket, then you're thinking, like, why did they score on you? Right? Like,
Right.
so you always looking at the defense. Like this is what you should have done defensively. As an analyst, especially an analyst, I work for the network. So that means I work for the schools. Big Ten Network is run by the schools, right? So you can't be on there talking about like Minnesota's defense is trash. Like so you have to look, and I had to learn that the hard way because and I got coached. Like they were just like, "Hey, you have to remember who's in your locker room." Like when you're a coach, your players are in your locker room, so you can be really critical. But like when you're on air, your locker room consists of like fans, of both teams, parents, player, somebody's grandmother's watching you on air, listening to you talk about their daughter. They don't want to hear you
Mhm.
talk about how your daughter can't guard their own shadow. Like nobody, like it might be funny and it might be a funny soundbite, but nobody wants to hear that, especially their college kids.
Yeah.
So it's just I have to look at the games differently. So if somebody gets a great steal and a breakaway layup, naturally as a coach, I'm like, hey, shorten your pass. You got to meet your pass, and then they won't pick that off. But as an analyst, I have to be like, she did a great job of anticipating and jumping the passing lane, shooting the gaps, and that's a great steal. Instead of that's a bad pass, that's a great steal.
You're more highlighting, yeah.
Exactly. So it doesn't mean that I'm a glazer. I learned what that meant because somebody called me the biggest Angel Reese glazer. And I was just like, what does that mean? Like, I didn't even know what that meant. And I had to ask somebody, and they were like, oh, it means that you're always just like sucking up to Angel Reese. And I'm like, okay, well, I work for the Chicago Sky, first
Yeah,
of all.
so duh.
So that's what one thing that like people don't understand. Like ESPN announcers, they can be more neutral, but like
Mhm.
Big Ten, ACC network, SEC network, and team announcers, we work for those schools or that team. And it's good. Like I don't think there's anything wrong with being positive or looking at things from a positive standpoint, but I also feel like I can be honest too. And if I see something like, hey, their defense needs to, improve, then I don't have a problem saying that.
And yeah, yeah. I've listened to Chicago Sky games. I've heard your voice, and you love some Angel Reese.
I do,
Yeah.
and I don't have like I know she's got some things that she needs to work on. She needs to work
Right.
on her shot, on her perimeter skills, her perimeter shooting. I've said it on there. You got HVL, you got Haley Van Lith on your board. I see it in the background. Haley struggles against pressure.
Mhm.
She has to work on her decision making versus pressure. I've said that on the air,
Yeah.
but I don't think there's anything wrong with pointing out the positive things that they do either. There's so much negativity in the world.
Yeah.
Can we be positive?
I know that's right. Yeah, you're right. You're right. Don't lie, don't lie. That is very true. So what makes the Big Ten different? Because you just love the Big Ten. Let's be honest. You played in it. You'd have been
I'm a Big Ten glazer.
that's that Gen Z for you. Don't be listening to them. Don't be listening. You was at Nebraska, you've been at Minnesota. Is it weird calling games for you? Calling games, and what makes the Big Ten so different?
First of all, the depth of the league. You especially when you add those four West Coast teams. You added four new teams to the league last year, and all four of them made the NCAA tournament. That's
Yeah,
crazy,
yeah,
right? That's crazy.
yeah.
Um, so the depth of the league is I think unique, but the coaching, even the coaches who are struggling this year, Joe McEwen, Carolyn Keeger at Penn State, Colquitt Washington at Rutgers, even Terry Morin at Indiana, even those coaches at the bottom of the league right now, they're still championship caliber
Mm,
coaches. Terry Morin has won Big Ten championships. She was National Coach of the Year. She had a number one seed a few years ago. Carolyn Keeger won multiple championships at in the Big East at Marquette. Joe McEwen is the winningest coach at two schools, Northwestern and George Washington. Everybody forgets what he
mm,
did at George Washington. Um, Joe McEwen brought us Veronica Bird, right? Colquitt Washington won three Big Ten championships at Penn State, Coach of the Year three times. So you don't just forget how to coach, right?
hmm.
But the league is so good that when you are at the bottom, it's really hard to get from the bottom to the middle. And then if you don't have great players, that's what happened with Terry Morin. Everybody transferred, and now boom. So I don't care how great of a coach you are. Bad players or average players make good coaches look bad or average, right?
Right.
So I think the depth, I think the quality of the coaching in the league, I think every coach, I sat down and I started figuring this out for fun. And I came up with every coach in our league has won a championship at some level, whether it was a conference championship, a national championship. So like Robin Fralick won a national championship, it was Division II, but she won a national championship at Ashland. But
Hmm.
like a conference championship or a national championship, or was coach of the year, either conference or national, except for uh Jan Jensen. And her team is like 15th in the country or top 20 right now. Like they're doing great. Iowa's doing great. And she is the only coach in our league that hasn't won a championship, which is crazy,
Crazy. Yeah.
right? So I think that's what separates the Big Ten for me is the depth of the league and just the caliber and experience of the coaches from top to bottom in the league.
I want a personal story on this one. There's somebody in the Big Ten that I know. I don't know personally, but I would say I know personally. My dad is the AU coach. I was the AU coach at one point. Um, we ran up against Jelani Cambridge when she
Hmm.
was in fifth grade.
Hmm.
We knew then that she was gonna be not just a good ball player, a pro.
Hmm.
She is amazing. Can you speak on
Hmm.
just for the people that when I say Jelani Cambridge is like that? I want you to can you speak on her just a little bit?
I don't know if there's a player as quick as she is in the league. She has the perfect combination of quick feet and quick hands. So she'll beat you off the bounce. Her three-point shot has improved
A lot,
immensely.
a lot.
But she'll also make life living hell for you because she also, if she wants to, she won't allow you to even run an offense. And arguably she's not even the best defender on her team. Arguably, like her sister is
Yeah.
technically a better defender than Jelani is. She's a pro. She's a sophomore, which is also like crazy. We get 2 more years of her. But here's the thing about Jelani is she's a dog on the court. And she plays her best. And I think this is what separates like good from great. This is what like everybody talks about Mamba mentality. You are not Mamba mentality because this is Mamba mentality. You're at your best when your best dictates it. When you're down and your back's against the ropes and your team needs a bucket, are you at your best? When Asia Wilson came to Illinois and sat courtside, Jelani Cambridge dropped like 40.
Hmm.
She didn't choke. You know, she didn't choke. She didn't get stage fright. She didn't go, oh my God, my idol's sitting here. I'm gonna crap my pants or wet the bed. Like she rose, and that's what she does. Like, and she plays her best when the game or the situation demands it. But then off the court, she's as sweet can be. You know what she does off the court in her spare time?
Tell me.
Legos, Legos, Legos.
Really?
She puts together Legos.
Dang. She was really really sweet girl when I met her back then, but I never would have got Legos from her.
Yeah,
And just watching her game, you
yeah.
never think Legos.
No, she puts together Legos. She's like as a sweet as as a killer, as much of a killer as she is on the court. She's equally sweet and humble off the court.
Dang, that's a good one. That's a good one right there. She's a top talent. I remember we
Yeah.
we knew back then. But who is somebody in the Big Ten that we are not looking at that we
Are you
should be
familiar with
looking at?
Shea Chesky? Are you familiar with Shea?
Not really.
Okay, and part of the reason is because she plays for Indiana right now,
Okay.
and Indiana's really struggling,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Shea's a dog. Shea is the first. It goes back and forth depending on the games. There's three that are like the top three scorers in our league. So she bounces between one and three, but one to three spot. But she's a guard. She's a dog. She kind of reminds me a little bit of a cross between Haley Van Lith and Kelsey Plum.
Hmm.
She can get buckets. She's a little bit smaller than Kelsey. She's more athletic, a little more explosive, I think, than Haley. Kind of in between the two. She can get buckets. She's a dog. Everybody says three-level scorer, right? But everybody's not a three-level scorer. You don't mean that. She's a true three-level scorer. She at one point at like 5'7", I think she was finishing like 70% at the rim, which is crazy to me. Because I know some post players that aren't finishing 70% at the rim.
Hmm.
She can shoot the three. She's got the mid range, and she's creates for herself. So she's got all the moves, all the in and out dribbles, the crossovers. She snatched, step back, all that. So Shea Chesky from Indiana. Barry Wallace is a sophomore. I think other than like Shea Chesky, everybody knows about Keomi McMiller, who also
Hmm.
might be buried because she's at Penn State. It's not doing so well. But really, we have a couple of good seniors. They all play for UCLA or
Yes.
Shea Chesky. And then otherwise, all the best players in our conference are young. They're sophomores or freshmen. Now, I'm not counting Juju. Juju's sitting out this year.
Hmm.
But like the best players at Michigan are sophomores. Johnny Cambridge, sophomore. Barry Wallace at Illinois, sophomore. Jazzy Davidson, USC, freshman. Kennedy Smith, USC, sophomore. Like Kennedy Blair, Michigan State, sophomore. Like all the best players in our league are young. Britt Prince,
Yep.
Nebraska,
Yep.
sophomore. It's crazy.
Yeah, the Big Ten, yeah, the Big Ten's
Yeah.
tough. The Big Ten's tough right now. It ain't Texas, but no, I was joking. I was just joking. I was joking.
Look, we're taping this the day after Texas lost to Vanderbilt, and your guy just went off on his team, and so I don't know if you want to I don't know if you want to go there today. Maybe like next week, but like today, I don't know if you want to go there today.
Hopefully, when this airs, and this should air the first of this episode will air first season the first episode of the season, which will be March
Okay.
1st.
Okay.
So
Okay. All
so
right.
we
They'll
didn't
be
have to
back on
mention that.
top. They'll be
We didn't have
back
to
on
mention
top. They'll be
that.
back on top.
But this has been a fantastic interview. I only have one thing or one other segment left. It's my last segment I say for this season. It's a new one, so you're not you prepare for this one.
Okay.
Um, as I ask five motivational questions, and I
Hmm.
want you to it's either finish the phrase or a question.
Okay.
The first one is finish the sentence. Women's basketball is.
Growing.
That's a good one. Finish. Give me a quote that defines this season of your life.
Intentional.
Okay. What is something that women's basketball needs right now?
cohesion. I don't like all the division. I don't like the stuff on social media just ripping all these players. Like we fought too hard to get this far, to get to where we are, to get this visibility, to get these television contracts, to get to be on TV. And now these players, they can't even go on social media without just hearing how trash they are, you
Yeah,
know? And I hate it. I hate it. They don't deserve that. The game doesn't deserve that. We need more cohesion in with women's basketball.
gotcha.
We like eat our own. We're eating
Yeah.
our own.
You think as far as we got, as far as you've women have gotten, sorry, that it's at some point you guys got to start sticking together.
Right. And you're part of this, James. I mean, you coach girls basketball, women's
Hmm.
basketball. Like you're part of this. As
Thank you.
far as we've gotten, like
Hmm.
we don't need to eat our own. Like
Yeah.
we can be critical. We can be critical without being nasty and
Yeah.
disrespectful. You
Yeah,
don't want to, you don't,
you've learned that
yeah,
broadcasting. You've
yeah,
learned that.
yeah, yeah.
Gotcha. Two more, or three more, because I'm gonna end always with my quote.
Okay.
Um, what is something that people don't see about your journey?
Um, People see what's on the surface, but they don't see like I got to talk to you a little bit about it, but they don't see the two-page evaluations that I would write in order to get the attention of the head coach who would eventually hire me for $35,000 a year, right? You see where I am now, but you don't see like everything that it took to get to where I am. And and so we want everything instantly right now.
Hmm.
And sometimes I think that if if you don't have the journey and the struggles, then you can't possibly appreciate when you get to the finish line, or or appreciate the successes. So
I know that's right. Um, if you can go back and talk to that girl that was shooting on the concrete, making up her own uh sidewalk games, what would you go back and say to her?
um I would tell her uh to don't read the comments. Don't read the comments because uh they don't read the comments. And that comparison is the thief of joy. So
I like that one. I like that one. I like that one for sure. And the last one, as always, is give me a Shimmy Miller's quote.
I gave you one, so I'll drop it again. Change, because it's scary. Change is scary to a lot of people, but change is an opportunity for something better to occur.
I like that one. I like that one. Well, I tell you, this has been another fantastic, fantastic interview. I cannot wait for this one to drop. Shimmy Miller, is there anything you want to say to the people at home?
I just want to say thank you. It's because of people like you, James, with platforms like this, and you highlight and you promote women's basketball and girls basketball on different levels. And so what I just want to say is thank you, and please continue doing the work that you do.
Thank you so much. And this has been another fantastic interview, and hopefully we get you on soon for a follow-up.
All right.
Thank you. Hold on one second.